I listened to the voicemail twice, not because I didn't understand it the first time, but because I was trying to hear something underneath it. Some hesitation, some space where it could be softened later. There wasn't any. You're out. Don't come back. We're moving forward without you. Her voice was steady, not angry, not emotional, just decided. I sat there for a while after it ended, the phone still in my hand, the screen already dimming. It didn't feel like a shock, not really. More like something that had been approaching for a long time had finally arrived, and now there was nothing left to anticipate. I typed back, noted. I didn't add anything else. There didn't seem to be a place for it. No explanation would have changed the tone of what she'd said. No defense would have made it less final. After I sent it, I put the phone down and waited for something to follow. A call, a correction, even a clarification. Nothing came. The silence stretched out, but it wasn't empty. It was defined for the first time in a long while. I wasn't trying to predict the next move. Later that afternoon, I opened my laptop, not out of urgency, more out of alignment. There were things I had postponed for years. Not because I didn't know how to do them, but because doing them would have meant acknowledging something I wasn't ready to name: shared access, joint permissions, quiet arrangements that had blurred into permanence. I logged into the trust account first. My name sat there alongside theirs, positioned like it had always belonged. It hadn't. I hovered over the authorization settings longer than necessary, not out of doubt, just habit. Then I removed myself. The confirmation screen appeared, clean and neutral. I clicked through it. No sound, no visible consequence, just a change that would take effect quietly, somewhere beyond the screen. I moved on to the shared bank account. It was the same process. Different interface, same structure. Years of access undone in a few steps. There was a moment, brief but noticeable, where something inside me paused. Not guilt, just recognition. I continued. Then the real estate deal. That one took longer. Not because it was complicated, but because it carried weight. I had funded most of it. Not formally acknowledged, but understood. At least I thought it had been. I called the agent, explained what needed to be done. My voice stayed even. Professional. There were questions, of course. Clarifications. Legal confirmations, but no resistance, just process. When the call ended, I sat back and looked at the screen. Everything that had connected me to them in a structural way was gone. Not dramatically, not loudly, just removed. That night, my phone started lighting up. At first, I ignored it. Then I picked it up and checked. Missed calls. More than I expected. Mess stacked in a way that suggested urgency, not conversation. I didn't open them. Not immediately. I set the phone back down and let the room stay quiet. It felt important not to rush into their timing. By morning, there were 79 missed calls. I counted them without meaning to. The number didn't feel overwhelming, just precise. There was a message from a number I didn't recognize. I opened that one. We have a serious problem. It was signed by a lawyer. I read it once, then again, slower. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I was noticing how different this felt from everything before. For years, everything had been informal, verbal, assumed. Now it had language around it. Structure, consequences that didn't rely on interpretation. I leaned back in my chair, the phone still in my hand, and I laughed. Not loudly, not uncontrollably, just a short, unexpected sound that came out before I could decide whether it should. It wasn't about them struggling, it was about the shift, about how something that had always been treated like background support had suddenly become visible the moment it was gone. I opened the message again and started typing. I believe everything is functioning as authorized. I paused, then added, if there are concerns, they can be addressed through the appropriate channels. I read it once before sending. It didn't feel sharp, just aligned. The calls continued for a while after that, less frequent, more spaced out. The tone changed, even without me answering, from urgency to something closer to negotiation. I didn't pick up, not because I was avoiding them, but because I had already stepped out of the space where those conversations usually happened. There wasn't anything left to resolve in the way they expected. A few days later, everything slowed. The messages stopped, the calls faded, the legal process moved forward, but at its own pace. Structured, predictable. I responded when necessary, briefly, clearly, no extra language, no emotional framing, just information. In the quiet that followed, something unfamiliar settled in. It wasn't relief. There was still a kind of absence, of noise, of expectation, of being pulled into things I hadn't chosen. But underneath that, there was something steadier. I no longer had to interpret what I meant to them. It had been said clearly, and I had responded in kind, not by arguing, not by correcting, but by stepping out of the role that had made their version of things possible. I sat by the window one morning, watching the light move slowly across the floor. My phone was nearby, silent. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was waiting for it. Not for a call, not for a message, not for a shift. Just present. The structure had changed, and with it, something in me had too. Not stronger, not harder. Just no longer positioned where I used to be, and whatever came next would have to meet me there.